Hello, and thank you for tuning in. You're currently watching the Skill Building Sunday Drawing Group with me, Jason Leeser, hosted on Sunday, July 31st at 1 p.m. If this is working for you, please let us know in the comments in the chat area, and welcome to Guy Aitchison's Reinventing the Tattoo community, where tattooers, apprentices, collectors, and the curious are encouraged to join in these live streams, real-world events, to share and inspire and ultimately create better art and tattoos together. We beam out nearly every day, and with your help have evolved into a quality network of amazing live and on-demand tattoo and art shows that have all been receiving rave reviews. You can find us on both the app stores, the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. You can also find us on YouTube and Facebook. You can catch all of the replays on the Reinventing the Tattoo Roku channel. And that's found at reinventingthetattoo.com/Roku. Or you can also listen to our podcasts on the usual places such as Apple and Spotify. Artists, if you're trying to join in, please, by all means, feel free to click on the link in the events area in the calendar. And you never know, if it's your first time, you could win a limited run Reinventing the Tattoo t-shirt. Who doesn't like free t-shirts? As always, you can get the latest event schedule and notifications so that you won't miss your favorite shows, all at reinventingthetattoo.com, which links out to everywhere. Once again, if this is working, please let us know in the comments in the chat. And hey, tag a friend who loves tattoos, whether it's a coworker or friend, colleague, someone that's just an enthusiast. Let them know, spread the word. On top of this show, we always have a number of great weekly shows that we always encourage people to tune into, starting on Sundays at 1 p.m. with me, Jason Leeser. And that's followed on Mondays at 9 a.m. with Drawing for Tattooers with James Wisdom, where we go through and we discuss some basic drawing techniques and strategies that we all need to revisit from time to time so that we can keep our art skills up. That's followed on Mondays at 11 a.m. with the Tattoo Weekly, hosted by Lauren Gregory, Jake Meeks of the Fireside Tattoo Network, and Gabe Ripley of Tattoo Now. That's followed on Mondays at 5 p.m. with Let's Talk About Feelings with Robbie Ripple, where we go through and we discuss some of the things that we feel being tattoo artists. As we all know, some of our emotions and some of our feelings aren't usually very often discussed, if ever. So this is an open place to go through and actually discuss some of the things that we feel from day to day and week to week. That's followed on Mondays at 9 p.m. with a subscriber exclusive drawing group with Guy Aitchison himself, where we go through and we cover different sections of the Reinventing the Tattoo canon week to week with direct explanation from Guy himself. All of that's followed on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. with a very good friend of mine, an incredibly talented tattoo artist, Ricardo Sertivant, where we go through, and it's called the Tuesday Feels Drawing Group, where we go through and we discuss some philosophy and some art theory and some technique tricks and tips. That's followed on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. with the Tattoo Now show, hosted by Gabe Ripley, where we explore some of the business aspects behind tattooing. And Thursdays at 6 p.m., we have the Tattoo Collecting 101 podcast with Fawn Baker. Actually, this weekend marks the Rubber City Tattoo Invitational in Akron, Ohio with Tony Urbanek. Those of you that might live in the area, you still have time to make it out. Go check it out. Would like to go through and take a minute to thank some of our sponsors and the people that make this show happen. Starting out with Raw Pigments, an ink company that's tapping into the source, rawpigments.co. I've started to incorporate a lot of these into my own personal lineup with great results. They saturate the skin super quickly, which makes for a lot easier healing because you only have to go over the area one time. The colors are ultra vibrant and light fast. You can't get better than Raw Pigments. WorldTattooEvents.com, the largest, most comprehensive resource for tattoo events worldwide. They're constantly keeping everything up to date because, as we all know, certain events and certain conventions are getting rescheduled still in this crazy post-pandemic world. So for the latest and greatest tattoo event information, take a look at worldtattooevents.com. Would also like to give a big thank you to DLize Pro, also known as Dermalize in the rest of the world. Protect your art. If you're still using plastic wrap to wrap up your tattoos, maybe it's time to step your game up. Dermalize was designed by wound care specialists all over the world who came together to create this aftercare product. I've been using it as well with some great results. I've noticed my tattoos are healing better and faster than ever before. So take a look at DLize Pro. TattooNow.com, technology for tattooers. The leading edge in SEO and professional development for tattooers of all levels, and they're now accepting new clients. So if you're really looking to reach out to that clientele base that you really want to tattoo, Tattoo Now is going to help you go through and attract those clients for you. They'll help you out with your website, your marketing, you name it, they can help you out with it. Everything except for, getting a loan or something like that, because that's not what they do. But yeah, TattooNow.com. And of course, this wouldn't be Reinventing the Tattoo without a very big personal and professional thank you to Guy Aitchison, who you can find at GuyAitchison.com. He is the founder and inspiration behind Reinventing the Tattoo. Take a look at GuyAitchison.com, where you can pick up a copy of his Biomech Encyclopedia, some of his DVDs. He's got some custom coil machines for sale, some original oil paintings, some of his fine art prints, and a whole lot more. Would also like to go through and say a very quick thank you to two of our affiliates, the Apprenticeship Diaries with Amy Nichols, that will help get you on track if you're looking to get a tattoo apprenticeship, and the Fireside Tattoo Network, which isn't exactly an online apprenticeship, but it will help you tattoo better if you already know how. As always, please post positive reviews on the channel. Help us get the word out. If you would like to host a Reinventing the Tattoo event or become a sponsor of our community, maybe you're just looking for an art critique. Either way, please feel free to email management@reinventingthetattoo.com. And welcome to the show. We've got a couple of awesome people with us in here already. We've got Pat McKay and Medusa.
Hi.
Hi, Medusa.
Hey.
And Pat's back.
I will correct you on my last name, though, because it is Mackey. It looks like McKay.
I do sincerely apologize.
I thought it was McKay, too.
No, it looks like McKay. It honestly, like when I'm closing out at a bar, they'll be like, "What's your last name?" Be like, "It's Mackey," but it looks like McKay.
Wow.
We've got Amber in the YouTube chats. Hey, Amber. And Kyle Olson's also in the chat. What's up, Kyle? Sorry if I butcher anyone's last name, by the way.
Olson?
But not really.
That's Kyle Olson?
Yes.
Oh. Gotta get our Kyles right. I always mix them all up.
Let me just close out of some of these windows. Cool.
Is my AC too loud in the sound?
No, I don't hear anything.
Okay, cool.
Either.
Double checking. Want to make sure I'm not having a lot of background noise.
Cool. And let me switch my camera over. I'm just about done with this chrysanthemum. Kyle Olson commented in the YouTube, "I'm Kyle number 2.
It's true.
Cheers.
Kyle 2 and Bernstein's 1. Bernstein is always 1. He's our little prodigy.
He is. That dude is kicking ass and taking names.
I am really getting like envious seeing his Instagram stories all the time, just being like, why? He's getting a lot of cool shit done, getting a lot of cool shit under his belt. I'm happy for him. Envious, but happy for him.
Well, it goes to show. I mean, he's worked his ass off to get to be where he is. And that's what I think is the secret to
He's earned every bit of it. And at such a young age, dude. That's so cool.
Yeah, he's if he keeps up with this pace, he's gonna go a few places. Not that he isn't already, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch his journey.
You're gonna be like, yeah, I knew him back when.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny when I tell people like some of the when I tell other artists, some of the people I've been fortunate enough to actually meet and sit down with and talk to as I was coming up in tattooing, a lot of people just sit back and they're like, whoa, because, like when you're an apprentice sitting down and talking to Nico Hurtado, like having lunch with him and picking his brain when you don't even know the right questions to ask, it's a bit intimidating, but I mean, super nice guy. I've never had an issue with him. I can still hit him up every now and then if I want to and ask him questions, which is awesome. I haven't seen him or talked to him in a few years, but I know he still remembers me. So that's a plus. And getting to watch him tattoo back to back with Shane O'Neill was like a mind-blowing experience, right? Two of the best realism artists in the world, tattooing in the same room at the same time, looking at their techniques and just watching how they, were working, executing something very similar in style, but using totally different techniques, to me was just like mind-blowing, and the fact that both of them still remember me is pretty awesome. But Kyle's going to be one of those people that, can sit back and be like, oh yeah, I remember talking to Guy back when I was still an apprentice. Then, there was this one time I had Derb come over and he was looking at me as I was working and, didn't really quite know what to say. But those are the stories that we acquire in our upbringing in tattooing.
I am hoping to acquire some of those stories for myself. I'm still in my upbringing.
Well, that's okay. Everything's all about time and patience.
Yeah.
Take your time. Enjoy the process of, learning to tattoo.
I'm already stoked the fact that I get to be a part of the reinventing community, and Launchpad itself, and
Launchpad
talking
Tattoo
to
Smart
you guys,
community, big shout out.
Yeah, just being able to talk to you guys weekly is, I'm just gonna say it's something I kind of want to brag about. Feels like a big thing.
I mean, I think it is, but then again, who am I, right? I'm just a guy that's on YouTube talking about tattoos.
I'm just grateful to be here, just to be here.
As we all should be. That's the ultimate thing, right? Is the appreciation for the ability to be able to practice the craft of tattooing.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
I personally think that there are always a lot of people out there that tend to get kind of jaded sometimes, with the fact that, oh, well, I'm so and so, I can do this and this and, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, so you've lost your appreciation for what you're doing. Gotcha.
There's a artist that I was following on Instagram that has a lot of like aggressive things to say about modern tattooing. And I feel like they're the type of person that probably had a really rough apprenticeship and are seeing young people like come up in a world where tattooing is about art, not just about picking something off of the walls and being friends with a bunch of bikers. And that, I don't know, he seems to come from a jaded point of view.
Well, I mean, that was the way things were done back then. That's just kind of the way things were. There wasn't,
but
it wasn't art
hatred
focused. It was all about the counterculture and the subculture behind tattooing.
Yeah, which I can appreciate. I definitely appreciate anything involving the history of tattooing, like finding out where we are today has come from on all the things that built up to where we are here is fascinating and interesting, and I really appreciate all of it. I just don't understand the loathing for progression or for evolution.
People get stuck in their ways and they get jealous. We've got technology out that makes tattooing way easier than it ever was before. We're using, well, I know a lot of artists out there that are currently using machines that are, not even half the weight of the old style, brass coil machines.
Oh, those things are so heavy.
They are, but you know what? That's what they had available. That's what people were using because that's all that they knew. And that's what was available at the time. Nowadays, we've got people out there using pen style machines, knocking out traditional pieces, in a very non-traditional way. And it's, they're crushing it, and they're doing it with more longevity, with better results, and their tattoos are lasting longer and looking better. And I think a lot of that ends up boiling down to just, in my opinion, jealousy as part of it. And then as the other part of it, the fact that, they feel like it's robbing some of the history of tattooing. And it's like, well, what do you mean well, they're not using coil machines and they're doing traditional tattoos. That's not a traditional tattoo. It's like,
man, dude, traditional tattoos come from bone char and sharpened sticks, man.
Exactly. Maybe it's like, if you
doing it right.
Let's talk about traditional tattoos, okay?
Like, no gloves. Don't wear any gloves.
Yeah, who would use gloves? Gloves, you wouldn't be able to feel the machine if you were using gloves, right?
Yeah. It's just like, who put peanuts in my peanut butter?
But I don't know. This is like a question. So Amber actually just made a comment on the YouTube saying, my first mentor was quite aggressive towards modern tattooing as well. It made the goal of taking my tattooing further than his capabilities really hard. He wouldn't let me use anything but a coil, which is, I mean, that's the way I know a lot of people when they're coming up in their first apprenticeship. And I've had discussions with people about this before. The job of being a tattoo mentor, of teaching someone how to tattoo, I think the question ultimately comes down to, what are you outlining that you will be teaching, right? Are you there to teach the history of it? Or are you there to go through and teach them how to apply tattoos and art? Are you there to teach all of the above? If you're there to talk about practical application, then why wouldn't you teach with the machines that you're currently using if you're using a rotary, right? I mean, that to me makes sense.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to sit down and teach someone how to do watercolor painting on a paper I've never worked with paints I've never used, or with stuff that I used, 20 years ago, but haven't touched since. To me, that's kind of counterproductive. I understand the logic and the concern behind people losing the history behind tattooing. I understand that. I do. But I think the ultimate question comes down to, if we really want to teach the next generation how to tattoo in an effective manner and have them outlive us and be way better than we are, we need to teach them not just what we know. We need to seek out more information to become better ourselves so that we can keep pace with the current quality standard.
I think one thing that is important to understand is that eventually you're going to be part of the history of tattooing. And if you care so much about the history of tattooing, when it comes to be like 50 years from now and you're part of the history of tattooing, what do you want people to think when they research you? Like, do you want them to think you're angry and jaded, that machines are changing and that people aren't bikers anymore and that they're coming out of art school and becoming tattooists? Or do you want your name in history to be like, this person helped bring forth or progress the tattoo community?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's very important to have that kind of foresight, to sit back and really think about that. Because we will be. I mean, all of the tattooers that are out there now, all of the ones that are out there that have just gotten started in tattooing, all of the ones that are out there that have already been doing it, that basically just started doing it because they saw it as a form of income, although I don't really agree with that position, but whatever.
It's just like, I'm so poor. Help me.
And I think, and that's fine. We all have different reasons why we got into tattooing. Some people see the money in it. Some people see the history in it. Some people see the art in it. You never really know why someone's getting into it. You never really know their true motivations. And there's a pretty good chance that if they're just in it for the money, they're never going to tell you. They will come up with some other reason why. They'll be like, oh, well, this was, I just didn't have any other options, or I had no other perspectives. It's like, well, I don't really agree with that. I think when you decide to become a tattooer, that is a calling. It's not the easiest life to lead if you want to be any good at it. Especially if you want to really try to push the bounds and really try to progress everything. But then again, if you're just in it for the money, you don't really care. You're going to do what's popular, and, it is what it is. Or you're going to find your niche and only tattooing, say, first timers, or, people that are only out to get their first tiny little tattoo. And that's all you want to do is tiny little stuff. That's cool. But at that point in time, take a step aside, let other people out there that are really passionate about being a tattooer, being a tattoo artist, pushing the bounds of what's being done, pushing the bounds of what's being used, let them take over. You sit back, run the studio, collect your check, but let them kind of dictate the direction that things are going, because that's going to help all of us out in the long run. Then again, that's my 2 cents. So.
I like your 2 cents, buddy.
I mean, I have the deepest respect for the history and craft of tattooing. I mean, I'm one of a handful of people that can sit down and discuss tattoo machine, coil machine frame geometry, right? And Hooke's law of spring theory, and, you know, using different types of enamel coated copper wire to wind coils. You know, I can tell you the significance and the science between every little bit of that. Why certain machines were made with brass frames and why other machines were made with steel frames. I can tell you that. You know, I can tell you why certain machines run the way that they do and other machines run the way that they do. Just looking at geometry, looking at springs that are on it, looking at geometry bars that are on it, looking at what's the material made out of, because that all has an effect on the way that the machine runs. You know, I can sit down and I can talk about that and I can debate that. But what do I use day in and day out? A rotary, right? And the reason why I made that switch and why I've stuck with that, number one, because I find them to be way more efficient and there are way fewer variables, right? Because at the end of the day, we want to control those variables when we tattoo.
Yeah.
You know, just looking at scientific method, eliminate all variables, and that will allow you to see what you're doing right and what you're not doing right. And when you use the same machines day in and day out with the same brand of needles day in and day out, with the same types of, you know, tubes or grips day in and day out, with the same pigments day in and day out, you learn what variables to control in order to create a flawless tattoo. You know, so that's number one. And number two is the longevity behind it. Because I found that when I was using coils, like, yeah, my wrist would start to hurt after a while. They're not the most comfortable things in the world to hold. Even if you get like some great ergonomic grips that are super bulky and heavy, that really counterbalance the weight of the machine, you're still holding a ton of weight in your hand. That's going to have an effect on you in the long term. So that's the other reason why I switched over to using rotaries. But I can still sit down and talk to you about Sailor Jerry Bulldog machines or Milton Zeiss Bakelite frames, or, you know, any number, how to solder needles correctly. You know, these are all things that are part of tattoo history that no one's really teaching anymore. You know, so I understand the need to teach the history as well. But when it comes down to practical application, I don't know if I would ever teach anyone to tattoo with a coil.
I don't miss coils. I don't miss the wrist pain, and I don't miss having to be a mechanic in between every tattoo.
I have never used a coil.
I appreciate the history. I'm really glad that my mentor taught me how to build a machine, how to take it apart, how to tune it. I'm really glad that my first few tattoos were done with coils. And I'm really glad that my mentor taught me how to solder needles, because I didn't realize that that's like, he made it seem like it was still a thing that everybody does in their apprenticeship. So, and then later I realized that not everybody does that. So I'm really grateful for that, but I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is like,
Ricardo and I
it all.
constantly
really
go back and forth and bring up the fact that we've probably inhaled so much solder flux in our years. We've probably knocked a good 10 years off of our life.
Oh, dude, I have a coil machine that has my mentor's fingerprint on it because of the flux stuff.
Liquid flux.
Yeah, the liquid flux. Yeah, so yeah, my coil machine has a thumbprint on it because of he had that shit on his hand when he grabbed my machine.
Yeah, that stuff's really corrosive too.
Yep.
Amber said it's the same principle as getting to know your paintbrushes. You're absolutely correct.
Nailed it, Amber. Nailed it.
You know, but when we're trying to discuss the same thing with people that, you know, are still kind of stuck in that old biker mentality, they didn't paint.
No,
They were go pick something off of the wall.
Yeah.
This is what I do. This is my paintbrush. You know, they didn't really take the time to sit down and learn about art because the art was already done for them.
Yeah. No, it's frustrating to see somebody in the tattoo community that doesn't like the fact that tattooing has become an art form and that they mention they want to take it back to when before tattooing had to be art. That's a little frustrating. But I don't think one single person. Yeah, I don't think
you're basically trying to reset us 20 or 30 years.
Yeah. I feel like that kind of stuff hurts the community.
Oh, it absolutely does. But you know what? If that's what makes them happy, and if that's what they want to think, go for it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to correct them because those are the people that are going to be left behind in the future.
It's frustrating. It's hurtful. But you know what? They do have the right to their own opinions and they can do whatever they want.
Absolutely. And who am I to tell someone that they don't have a right to their opinion?
You're right.
I'm not saying I agree with their opinion, but you have the right to think whatever you want to think.
Yeah. You can still think it. Are you still working on that mum?
I am.
Do you only work on it on Sundays?
Do I what?
Do you only work on it on Sundays?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, this is my Sunday art project. I've been, believe it or not, over the past few weeks, and I was talking to Ricardo about this a little bit ago. He popped in before everyone else. But I've been trying to get, I've got a couple of conventions coming up in the next few months. And I've been trying to work on a whole bunch of new, like, small convention designs. And I'm trying to get 20 to 25 fully rendered small little 4x6 designs together for the next few shows that I'm working at. And I think I'm at like 12 or 13 as of right now. But that's what I've been working on throughout the weeks, most weeks, you know, on top of appointments and getting appointments together and stuff like that. It's just, you know, I find that when I sit down and schedule myself and divvy up my schedule to the point that I know that, okay, this is what I'm working on this day. This is what I'm working on this day. It kind of helps me balance out. Otherwise, I just get sucked into one project. And like, that's all I do. And that's not productive sometimes, I guess.
No, that makes sense. I can relate to that. I'm still working on my time management skills. Horrible. Still as bad as the last time we talked about it.
Yeah, time management is not easy. I find that when you sit down and you write out your schedule, write out what you're trying to accomplish, and, you know, make sure that you set yourself some time for just relaxation and all that stuff. Factor everything in. And then sit down and say, okay, what am I going to do? And when am I going to do it?
I've got no discipline, my dude. I've done that. And then I've looked at the schedule and be like, but I don't want to do it that way. I want to do it my own way. And then I do it my own way because I know that nobody's going to stop me but me. And I'm not going to stop me.
Yep. That's self-control.
I have none of that.
You know, when you in my opinion, when you really sit down and you really want to make that kind of a commitment and you really want to kind of push yourself to be better at that, when you really want to do that, you will. But until that happens, you're going to sit back and find every excuse not to do it.
Yep. I am going to just, until that happens, I'm just going to settle for suffering in my own anxiety because I didn't do the stuff the way I should have.
Well, every day is a day to make a change. You know, so if you decide that that's not who you want to be anymore, you can change it, you know, in the next minute, in the next hour, whenever you want. There's always time for a change.
Off topic. What do you guys use to make your stencils? Like, do you have certain stencil machines or stencil printers, or do you guys do the hand stencils by hand? Or
I have a group of wood gnomes, forest gnomes that I captured and have chained to a workbench in the back of the studio. And they've learned how to draw really, really fast. And that's how I do my stencils. Brilliant. I just give that to them and, you know,
do you pay them though?
No, of course not. Why would I pay them?
Labor, dude.
I have to pay for the food to keep them alive.
Yeah, what would you pay a wood gnome?
I don't know. Pay them in wood or something.
In wood?
Yeah, no. They're a wood gnome. They should like wood, right?
No, they just because they live in trees, hence the name wood gnome.
I thought they were made of wood.
No, they're not made of wood, but they do live in trees, and trees are made of wood. That's
so
why
what if you give them a shrubbery?
You know, I thought about that, but shrubberies are bushes.
But it'd be kind of like the Knights of Ni at that point.
Let's go back to talking about wood.
But they are no longer the Knights of Ni. They are now the knights who say, Eki, 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 kablang, vu boing, and rausen.
That was amazing. Fuck yeah.
I can quote that movie line by line.
One of my favorite movies growing up.
Okay.
Thou shalt count to the number 3. No more, no less. 3 is the number ye shall count, and the number of the counting shall be 3. 4 is too many, and 2, unless of course directly preceded by 3, is too few. 5 is right out.
I have it going in my head as you're saying this.
I have a Procreate question.
I have a Procreate answer.
I knew you would. Sometimes when I'm drawing, a line shoots across. I think it's because the back of my hand is also touching the thing. Do you know how I can prevent that, or is there something to adjust it?
Yes. It's not because of your hand, believe it or not, it is your pencil.
God damn you.
It's the tip.
Just the tip?
Yes.
Let's go back to talking about wood.
If you twist it off, I find that sometimes when you twist it off and reseat it.
What?
Reseat it. So re-screw it back down and make sure it's on there nice and tight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Now try working with it again. If that still doesn't help, what you can do is, if you've tried rebooting the iPad, if you've tried rebooting the app, make a backup of all of your Procreate files, offload the app, and then re-download it. Sometimes that'll help because they do put in different software patches and fixes. If that still doesn't help, sometimes you can pick up like a matte screen protector, put that on. That's going to help dampen the.
I have a matte screen protector.
Do you?
Okay. I got the Paper-like.
See, I didn't like the Paper-like one. I just kept eating away at my tips.
Really?
Yeah, Amber just commented, it's always the tip.
Oh, by the way, I don't know if you saw this in the Reinventing forums, but for a quick reminder for Monday night's classes.
Yes. Bigger shapes and long, smooth gradients.
Oh. Yeah. Another thing that I don't know if it's my pencil or the app or maybe that same issue is when I'm drawing a line and it skips multiple times.
That, believe it or not, is definitely your pencil.
Okay. And
now let me ask you this. When was the last time you made a human sacrifice to the technology gods?
Oh, fuck, it's been a minute.
Yeah.
I think so 2008. I haven't done that since 2008.
That.
Oh, fuck.
They don't require a big sacrifice. You know, it doesn't have to be someone very big, you know, but they do require a sacrifice. Usually a shrubbery.
Full circle.
A shrubbery sacrifice?
You must bring them
I just
a shrubbery.
Sacrifice recently and upgraded to the newest iPad Pro because I had an iPad Air from 2019 and I was like, you know what, this isn't doing the stuff I wanted to do. And then I got the Pro and I was like, damn, this is like doing way more than the stuff I ever thought it could do.
Oh yeah.
I've got, I think mine is from 2018, 2017. So
I learned after doing some research that Apple considers any product over 7 years old obsolete. They will not release security updates for it or anything like that anymore.
That is correct.
That surprises me because I honestly thought that obsolete was anything older than 3 months when it came to Apple.
It kind of is.
Yeah. Well, let's get real
the fact
here.
that they only put out new product releases for laptops once a year, iPads once a year, phones once a year. They only really release major updates once a year for them. So
Jason,
3 months
on a line at like MacBooks, right? And I'll see these 2015s and they'll be running on the latest operating system. So is it just a matter of like, if you buy an old MacBook, you just have to take it upon yourself to install that operating system and maybe you can take advantage of the cheaper price that way?
That is correct. I mean, the laptop I run day in and day out, even for these broadcasts, is from 2017.
Because they got the 2015s. You could get the MacBook Pros from 2015 for like $250. They're super fucking cheap these days.
Right. But what you're not going to get is an upgraded processor. And that's going to make everything slow down.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I come from a tech background. Absolutely. So it's like,
so you get it.
Yeah, I get that entirely. And especially with the stuff that we're doing digitally, like we need decent processors for that shit. And it's only getting better and more demanding as time goes on.
And that's the reason why they say that a lot of things are obsolete, because
it makes sense,
especially when you're dealing with graphics.
Computers change every fucking month, I swear, whether it's Windows or Apple or whatever. Like there's such a huge turnover rate with that shit. It's insane if you want to keep up with it.
Well, the thing is, it's not necessarily the hardware, because you can run legacy hardware, right? Say a MacBook from 2015, or I mean, even older if you wanted to. The problem is that you're not going to be able to install the latest software for it. It's the software that's really driving the hardware market.
Well, it's even like this.
You've got software coming out that's requiring so much more power that if you don't keep up with that, you're never going to be able to run it. So that's why they say anything older than X amount of years is obsolete, because by that point in time, you're not going to be able to find software to run on it.
Yeah. Well, it's even even as simple as this, like with the iPad Air and the iPad Pro from the same year from 2019, right? The iPad Air, I have this Mandala add-on for Procreate just to make my life a lot easier when I want to do shit like that. And there's a lesser version if you don't have a Pro. So I can only imagine how different it is once you add a couple years onto it in both areas.
I need to get a new iPad because mine is about 5 years old, and everybody in the shop is sick and tired of me always needing to recharge and complain about how it died in the middle of my drawing.
Do you have a phone service through like T-Mobile or Sprint by chance?
No.
I was going to say I went in and just put money down and added it to the bill. It was like $30 extra every month after I put down just short of $600, which was super fucking worth it because it's revolutionized everything for me.
What, the new iPad?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're paying it off with your phone plan.
Yes.
Oh, that's cool.
Amber made a comment in regards to sacrificing to the technology gods.
Oh, yes.
She says, all this time I thought we were sacrificing chickens. I totally missed that email.
Oh, Amber.
See, that's what would happen if you had a later version.
No, chickens are for defeating the sacrifices to make them nice and plump and juicy for the technology gods. Oh, Amber. I'm really glad you're here.
You're really supposed to sacrifice babies, as far as I know.
I mean, that's what I've heard, but like, I couldn't.
Because that's what witches do.
They're not very big. Like, how much of a sacrifice could that really be?
Witches don't sacrifice babies. They use the baby blood for the flying ointment. They aren't sacrificing the babies. The babies are just an ingredient for a much bigger thing.
Yes, but they're still, I feel like they're still being sacrificed though, because they are still having their life taken from them to sacrifice themselves to make you fly.
No.
But that to me seems counterproductive, right? I mean, why would you want to take their life when you can just drain a little bit here, feed them again, drain a little bit here, feed them again?
Well, you also parenting? Well, the thing is though, like they're
draining your life.
We don't waste. We don't believe in waste. So we typically will use all of the body of the baby. So like, the fat can be used to keep our candles, lanterns lit. The bones can be just carved into cutlery. The meat, obviously.
Let me stop you right there. Okay. Number one, not economical at all. There is no way you can sit back and tell me that you are going to get enough raw material from a child to make a fork. Okay. The bones physically are not big enough to even make, a toothpick.
It's like a fondue fork.
Yeah, but what good is a fondue fork if I'm trying to eat a steak?
It didn't specify size. It could be a mini fork.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm sorry. Like, I've got tiny hands. I'll admit that.
But baby meat is not enough you need tiny forks for the tiny meats.
But why would I eat tiny meats?
It's tender.
I'm a hungry man. I require vast substance.
It's human veal. It's tender.
So to me, using babies has always just seemed counterproductive.
It's like caviar. You eat small amounts and you're just thankful to eat it.
Yeah. It's a delicacy. I wonder how many subscribers we lost in that conversation. Sorry, everybody.
Pickle forks. Amber says, see, I learned so much from these sessions. You guys are awesome.
You're awesome, Amber.
So at least we know Amber's still sticking around.
She's on board, dude. She's with it. She knows what time it is.
Amber, why don't you ever join us on the Zooms?
Yeah, Amber, get over here. Oh, we got silence as if we're waiting for her to respond, but we
Yeah,
gotta
I'm waiting for
wait
the delay on YouTube,
Yeah,
and
we gotta wait for her to respond, then for the delay on YouTube, then for
Amber, if you
Jason
want to
read it.
join us on these Zoom sessions, drop your Instagram handle in the live chat on YouTube, and I will pull it up and I will send you the link.
Talk about service, dude.
Yeah, well, you figure for someone that jumps into like and comment on every YouTube live broadcast, we might as well just get them on.
Absolutely. I agree.
It's okay if some people are camera bashful too.
Yeah. Amber says, I do plan on it. I tend to be babysitting my grandkids most days. Okay.
That's fair.
That's understandable. Or I'm pretty sure, as Medusa would say, you're basically a ranch hand for the livestock, right? Is that the way that you would put it?
She's taking care of the livestock, feeding the food, prepping the meal. Sorry, Amber.
So let me ask you guys this. For those of you out there that use cartridges, what brand of cartridge are you currently using and why? And this is something that I always like to hear different perspectives about.
So at my shop, they were using the mass cartridges for quite a while. And when it came down to bigger sizes, it was fine. But when it came down to finer shit, it was just not fucking legit at all. So we went to the Explorer conference. I bought some cartridges there and tried them. They were super fucking nice. And ever since that, I've just been using those personally because they're super reliable. I've never had any seize up on me. I've never had any do some weird jumping around or anything.
Yeah, stability is a factor for sure.
And they cost a little bit more than other cartridges, but if you're going to the conferences, you're getting 10% off anyways, and you're learning awesome shit. So I think it's worthwhile in general. I mean, they're the same price as Cheyenne at the end. I haven't used the Cheyenne ones. I want to, but right now I know exactly how these use, so I'm just kind of stuck in my ways with those at this point.
See, I've used Cheyennes before. I like them. I've always found like my go-to used to be the Black Claw cartridges, just because I like their sizes. Their liners they're almost unbeatable. There's only one company I found that can even compare to their liners, and that's a Good Guy Supply out of Canada. Big shout out to Rob over at Good Guy. You rock. But especially for like finer needles and finer lines, you have to have that kind of stability there. And I found personally, whenever I used a cartridge that was more budget friendly, for the more politically correct term, there was too much wobble and too much instability in it. I even found that with like, and I'm not saying like the Black Claw bio cartridges, I don't like those at all. I've had too many of those bind up on me, mostly just because of like excess friction coming from the plunger into the actual casing of the cartridge. Because of the material that it's made out of, you get a lot of friction, and that friction builds heat. That heat will melt that rear plunger into the casing of the cartridge, and you now have a busted cartridge, right? But their plastic cartridges, the ones that are not bio, are phenomenal on so many different levels. especially their bigger straight liners. Mwah, beautiful, perfect, true to size lines every time. They're almost, I highly recommend them, especially for people that are just starting tattooing, because they're almost blowout proof. They're soldered back far enough and they're loose enough of a grouping. They're not super stiff. They're loose enough as a grouping so that when they hit the skin, they expand slightly. And they're going to expand a little bit more as they touch down with more pressure. So the only thing you're going to do is get a bigger line, unless you're really trying to blow out a line and you've got way too much needle hang and you're just like, screw it. Meh, meh. You know, if that's the way you tattoo, don't use them, because it doesn't matter what you use, you're going to blow out every single line. Yes, they are more expensive, but they were designed by leading tattooers in the field. People that started the company are legitimate tattoo artists that are unreal, like unbelievable. So there's something to be said for that. These guys have made their own needles for many years. They know what makes for a good liner. You know, they know that if they have too much solder or they soldered down too far, it's not going to work right. And it's not going to have the versatility, and it's going to be too stiff when they use it. So highly recommend you try those out. Same thing with Good Guy. They offer several different sizes, maybe not as much of a size selection or a type selection, but Good Guy out of Canada makes some incredible cartridges. They're actually my preferred go-to for like super fine lines, singles, threes, anything like that. They're the most stable I have ever used. You can run them as fast or as slow as you want to without them binding up. They've got the perfect solder length, especially on their fine lines. They're like tight threes, tight fives and stuff like that. It's the perfect amount of solder for perfect ink flow and stability. For bigger lines, I still love my Black Claws, but that's when they're in stock, and you never know if they're ever in stock. Most of the times when you need a certain size, like a straight 7 or a straight 9 or a straight 11, there's a pretty good chance they are out of stock, because they are that good. They always sell out super quick. You know, I know guys that used to go through, they used to get the emails every time one of their specific sizes was in stock, and they'd buy 5 or 6 boxes of the same grouping just because they didn't know the next time they were going to be in stock. And they didn't want to have to look around for another brand. I used to use Quadrants all the time, as Kyle recommended. Quadrants are great. I loved them. I used them for a long time. Once again, I found that, I just couldn't, I just found that they weren't stable enough if I was using a smaller size. And I always like to go through and do what I call the wiggle test. And let me grab a cartridge that I have available. I'll walk you guys through the wiggle test and what that's like. And yes, I just have random cartridges sitting around my house. Don't ask why. They're all expired.
Yeah, I do too. So I get it.
Oh, totally forgot about these guys. Yep, expired. So I'm going to try to go through and not show off any labels here, just because I don't want to get in trouble for anything. Not that there's anything wrong with what I'm doing. It's just, I'm just trying to use this as an example. So And let's zoom in a little bit more because you guys are probably going to need to see this a lot better. So this is what I call the wiggle test. Focus. There we go. And there we go. So I've got 3 different cartridges here, right? Fresh out of the packaging. So this is what I call the wiggle test. And let me know if this isn't in focus at all. But what you do is it requires sacrificing a cartridge. Take it and you push the plunger bar down so that that needle comes out the front, right? Just like it would in a machine. Take the tip of your finger. You don't have to press very hard. Take it and just move it while that needle is all the way out and just see how much it moves side to side and all around, right? What that's going to do is tell you as that needle is vibrating, how much wiggle room there is. And it's going to tell you how stable that needle is. So that one didn't move very much at all. This one, I don't know how well you guys can see this, but you can see that, you know, my skin's moving. I'm not really like dragging it along the needles. But while this is out, you can actually see that needle bar on the inside wiggle back and forth. So that right there tells me that even at smaller groupings, I would never use one of this brand, right? Because that's too much play. If you're trying to get a laser precise, super tight little line in there, you want something that's going to go and be exactly where you aim it. Okay, these are from a different company. It's a little bit of a bigger grouping, and you can still see a little bit of play in there, which for bigger groupings isn't really going to matter too much. But you can still see there's a little bit of a wobble and a little bit of a wiggle in that needle bar.
So just for definition purposes, why does it not matter as much with bigger groupings compared to smaller groupings? I feel like I know the answer, but I figure I could get a better one from you.
With bigger groupings, you have a bigger margin of error. You're creating a much wider line using a lot more pins. So it doesn't necessarily have to be ultra precise. You know, there's a lot. If you say you've got a 3-liner and you hit a bump or they sneeze or something like that, and it moves over a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of an inch,
you're going to
see that using a tight 3.
Yeah, for sure.
But if you're using something like a 9 or an 11, it's not going to matter. You're never going to see that.
Yeah.
You've got so many pins that are compensating for it, you know, because you're making a line that's 1/8 of an inch wide, that if it moves over 1/128th of an inch, it's going to be unnoticeable to the human eye.
Absolutely.
But you will notice it if you're using something like a single or a 3. You need that stability with smaller liner groupings.
You said it was Good Guys for the tight liners, right?
I absolutely swear by them.
Cool.
Absolutely 100%. They are the most stable liners I've ever used.
So when it comes down to like even 3s, I've been trying to figure out who I want to deal with, because with being in a beach town, we get a lot of those Pinterest tattoos for sure. And everybody wants them as thin as possible. I used T-Tech for a little while, and the T-Techs are nice, but I'm always open-minded to using other companies.
Yeah. Take a look at Good Guy. I swear by them for tight liners. You know who I've been using a lot more for singles? It's a company out of Southern California called Nuclear. Nuclear Tattoo Supply, and they make a brand of cartridge called the Papa cartridge. Their small groupings are extremely stable. That's like my backup go-to. And I've used their singles before, and they're on point, and they're very budget friendly. I'm not a big fan of their bigger groupings, just because I find that they could be a little bit more spread and a little bit of a looser grouping, just for better capillary action. But that's just something that's a personal preference, right? And we all have personal preferences. If you like, quadrant tight threes, stay with quadrant tight threes. If that's what you like, that's what you like. I'm not going to tell you that they're terrible, because they're not. They're good needles. Like I said, I used quadrant for a long, long time. I used to swear by them. They're Sublime cartridges, they're regular cartridges, whatever, man. They were great. The reason why I started to move away from them is I did a breakdown of them and like took some of them apart, and I was looking at the membranes, and I just wasn't like super thrilled with the way that the membranes were constructed.
Do you have this on video?
What?
Breaking down them and going through the parts. Do you have it on video?
No, but I mean, I can do it right now.
I'm interested.
Let me go piddle. I'll be right back.
Yeah,
I have to go piddle.
Excuse me, I got a wee wee.
All right. Well, if we're gonna do that, I'm gonna break out a couple of other.
I'm looking at the New Guy website, and I like the fact that they vet new accounts. That is cool.
Good Guy is tattooer owned and run. They are a legit company.
Love it. I'm gonna register right now.
Yeah, I absolutely swear by Good Guy. Their mags are perfect too. The way I got turned on to Good Guy was through talking to James Tex and Anthony Tex, because that's who they used to buy all their supplies from. But I love their cartridges. I do like Cheyenne cartridges. They're nice. I like their capillary cartridges. The problem is, if you're using those with color, they are an absolute nightmare to rinse out. And there is almost no possible way that you can rinse out any of those capillary cartridges. Yeah, just to give you an idea, Medusa, this is, and I don't know if this is in focus or not, or if I have to be down here.
Not really.
All right, let's do this. All right, so if we're going to do this right.
Where's my dog?
Then I'm actually going to move all of this, and I just pray this doesn't screw up my camera. It should be good. Focus.
All right. I've returned. I'm going to grab a cartridge myself. Have some trash ones.
Yeah, do not ever try this with cartridges that you plan on using for obvious reasons.
Ew. Ew.
And yes, I'm doing this without gloves because all of the cartridges I will be doing a teardown on today are expired, and I never plan on using them, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, so got a number of different cartridges here. This is how I like to do little teardowns and breakdowns. First thing you're going to want to do is get like a flathead screwdriver with a very, very, very fine, thin tip. Sometimes just using your fingernail works. You're going to see a seam around the back end of most cartridges. And what you're going to want to do is get underneath that and just kind of like pop it up. Okay. When you do that, this whole back end comes out. Okay. So now you've got the tip of the cartridge and you've got your needle assembly. You've got your membrane, right? And then you've got your plunger bar back here. And with some of them, and let me pull up. Yeah. Now watch, I go and like slice my hand open live on air.
Let's hope not.
With some of them, you even have a little bit of a stabilizer built into the tip. Okay, that's going to help keep the needles a little bit more stable. See this mostly on liners, not necessarily always on mags, but almost always on liners. Now that stabilizer is great if it's nice and tight to the needle assembly. Okay. If it's not nice and tight to the needle assembly, say you're using something like a 3-liner or something like that, you're going to have too much wobble. But if it's too tight, you're going to get a lot of friction and a lot of binding. So once again, we've got our needle assembly, our needle grouping, needle assembly here, where it's either plastic or metal. Then we've got our membrane, we've got our end cap and our plunger bar. And same thing with this brand. This is mag. Now, I don't have any of the good guys here or any of the Black Claws that I swear by. So
they probably don't get expired. You probably use them.
Yeah, I go through those like it's my job because it is. Oh, you know, this is another very well-known brand. And this is what kind of like, it's not that it bothered me, but it's just something I really started to look at. I like the way that this is actually metal. It's got the metal needle bar soldered onto the groupings. Okay, I do really, really like that because that's going to be less, what's the word I'm looking for? Less energy absorbed through the actual push rod, right? Like as you're pushing and using the needles. Okay. So it's going to be less loss of energy because you've got downward force coming down from the machine onto the back of the plunger bar, and that's driving in. As this impacts with the skin, it's going to be minute. So you're probably not really going to even realize it. But the drive bar behind the needle grouping is going to flex slightly. Okay, just ever so slightly. And that's going to actually create a more cushioned hit. For people out there that like a really, really hard, stiff impact on every needle, then you're probably going to want to go with something more like a rubber band system or something like that. Those aren't exactly the most hygienic. So I don't usually try to recommend those. Just because not that I've ever had this happen, but hypothetically speaking, if there ever was any kind of a backflow into the back of the cartridge, that's where you could see it climb up the push bar and into the interior of the machine. Now, I don't know about you guys, but 9 times out of 10, when I'm tattooing, I'm not tattooing at an upward angle. Okay. I'm never getting below the area I'm tattooing to try to like color something in at this kind of an angle where gravity is going to pull that pigment down into the back of the cartridge. Okay, so I'm not Michelangelo painting a ceiling here. I'm never going to want to hold my machine vertically. I mean, vertically, yes, but not upside down, right? Because that would kind of, number one, put me in a very awkward position. And I'm sorry, but there's only a couple of people in the world that could ever forcibly put me in that kind of an awkward position. And doing a tattoo is not the circumstance in which I would be willing to be put into that awkward position, if you catch my drift. So because I'm never tattooing upside down, I never usually worry about backflow too much. Not saying that you shouldn't take that into consideration, but it's just, I make sure it's a point to never get myself into that kind of a position. Now we've got a couple of different needle groupings from a couple of different manufacturers here. Some are liners, some are shaders, just because I'm just grabbing whatever I have available. I've got one more over here, two more. Oh, that would have been bad. You'll notice the back end on some of these comes off very, very easily. The back end on some of them is a little bit more stiff. And it's a little bit locked down a little bit tighter. So as we can see, for the majority of the groupings that we have out there on the market, we have an assembly kind of like this, where you've got plastic to the needle groupings that are soldered together. That plastic is usually done in one, let me just take this membrane down a little bit. The plastic is usually connected to one long push rod. If this is the back stem of the cartridge, right? This is usually one big, long, continuous piece. Okay, when the membrane is attached, you'll see that it comes up a certain amount. And I think this one's actually glued to that spot on the actual drive shaft of the cartridge. Okay. This back stem or this stopper comes down, membrane goes on top of it, and that's where you get the elastic drive and the return force on most rotary and coil machine, or most rotary and pen style machines. This is the return force that is going to return that needle back to its original starting position. Okay. And ideally, you should be able to, if that's locked on there nice and tight, you should be able to hold it right by the backstop, the edge of the cartridge. And it should, theoretically speaking, you should be able to stretch it all the way out just by holding on to the backstop of the cartridge. Right? I should be able to push this all the way down, and I'm specifically making it a point not to hold that membrane at all. I might be a little bit, but I'm trying my best not to. And this is what I was saying by doing a cartridge teardown using their membranes. I do like the fact that the membrane on this cartridge is ultra flexible and like it's very secure, which is awesome. Okay. Every cartridge should act like that as far as their membrane. However, what is this?
A gap?
Bingo. The reason why some of these cartridges hit really, really hard is because they've actually removed part of the membrane, which is nice because it's going to allow a little bit more natural downward force coming from the machine itself. However, what that is opening this cartridge up to is potential backflow onto the back stem and into the center of the machine. Now, once again, that's only really an issue if you try to be like Michelangelo and paint or tattoo upside down. Okay. Which in that case, if anything gets over this first little lip here, you're screwed, because now it's openly going to flow along the back stem of the push rod of the cartridge and potentially into your machine. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, other than that, I love how flexible these membranes are. I absolutely adore that. And you'll notice that this is a steel needle bar soldered onto a mag grouping that is then encased and plastic welded onto the back push rod. Basically, this was pushed into this and then melted on to completely encase it. Awesome. Good, nice, solid, sturdy, not coming out anytime soon. I would probably have to break this whole thing just to get that metal needle bar off. You'll notice that this membrane is pretty much free floating, so it can slip down. I could take this whole membrane off if I really wanted to. Not going to, but I could if I wanted to. Cartridges like this are great, especially the ones with the steel needle bar, simply because if you notice that there's any kind of a wobble, you can always take your needles and bend them at the solder line to give them a little bit, just a hair of a downward arc, just like you would using an actual like needle on bar assembly. What that's going to do is force it to stick to the back of the tube a little bit more, or the back of the tip of the cartridge a little bit more. And that's going to give you a much more steady, predictable, and accurate impact area. What that's also going to do is cause a lot more friction against the tip of the cartridge, and that might not be exactly what you're trying to do. So that's that one. This one I kind of already went over, where the front is basically glued on to the front of the assembly, and it's all plastic back here. Also, take a look at the length, just to point these out. Take a look at the length of the pins that are being used, right? Take a look at how far down they're soldered, how much available room there is from the end of the solder to the tip of the needles, because that's going to directly translate into needle flex, right? How much room there is and how much flexibility there is in each individual grouping. And if you listen very carefully, I don't know if you guys can hear that.
I can hear that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's me just like running my finger along the tips of these pins. So just, once again, just take a look at that. It's what varies from company to company. This one's got a very similar construction to the one that I just took apart. Back casing comes off very, very easily. You can notice a little bit of a difference in the shape. This one's got a square opening, ideally to keep it more in line and create less wiggle, I guess. Not quite sure why they did that, but it does prevent a little bit of like rotational restriction, which is fine. Full membrane, which is cool. Once again, that's going to help prevent backflow. Membrane's not secured very well on the backstop of the cartridge. And the membrane seems a little bit more stiff. I actually have to hold it onto the back of the cartridge. That's going to translate. Stiffer membranes are definitely going to translate into how much the motor on your machine is going to have to push in order to get that needle to move just a little bit. That's going to translate into wear and tear on your machine motor. Keep that in mind. right? Because the stiffer the membrane is, the harder that machine is going to have to push just to get the needle to come out the tip of the tube. But it is also going to give it a much harder return force as well. So, food for thought. And just so that I'm consistent with everything I'm doing. So you can see some of these are pretty similar as far as like squared opening. The shaft on this one has pretty much a squared off back. And I'm assuming that's to help keep everything in alignment so that you don't get too much rotation on the grouping. In fact, this one should be able to fit inside this back end. Probably won't come down quite as far. But you can start to see a lot of similarities between companies as far as, you know, how things are being made. Let's go on to the next one. This one, back end comes off pretty easily. Nice round grouping. Looks like it's going to have a pretty flexible membrane. Yeah, membrane's way more flexible on this one, which is going to translate into a lot less motor wear and tear. It's not going to have quite the stiff return force, but it is going to allow your machine to really utilize a lot of the downward impact coming from that motor. However, as you can see with me just holding the back edge, you can see a lot of like wobble and a lot of wiggle, you know, side to side and back and forward. And that's because the back stem is not, there's not really a super crazy high tolerance on the back stop of the cartridge, right? So you've got a lot of wiggle back here on this back stem. That's going to translate into a lot of excess motion on the tips of the needle cartridge. And I think I've got one more over here I'm going to be reviewing, but I'm pretty sure that's just a liner grouping of one of the ones I've already taken apart. What you'll notice on a lot of, in my opinion, better, more quality liner cartridges is you'll notice that there's a very, very tight tolerance for the needle stabilization. Just like you have in one of these had it. Yeah, here. Let's see if I can just pop this guy out. Yep. So this is one of the needle stabilizers that's usually housed on the interior of the tip of a cartridge. The way that these work is that you have, I think it was this one. These, as they're going through the casing of the cartridge, come straight through the front, and that helps keep everything from wobbling too much because you now have a 2-point anchor system to keep everything from wobbling, right? So if this was here, no, it was this one. So we'll just do this. I don't think this goes with this, but you get the point. You've got your stabilizer here. So you've got 0.1 for stabilization, 0.2 for stabilization. That's going to really help you cut down on how much wiggle there is at the front. As you can tell, there's still a little bit of movement just based off of the plunger bar. So just some food for thought. That's the way the needle stabilizers work. Let's back off there. So this is from a different company. Once again, we've got a steel bar melted into plastic or plastic welded with a rather long liner assembly. And just for comparison's sake, which one of these do you think is going to run more true?
On the right.
Most people would say the one on the right because it's just straight, right? And that's what I always thought. Because when you've got one solid linear shaft, that makes sense. The question then becomes, what is the tip of the cartridge set up to look like?
So wait, in the other one, the tip will be rested against the hollow point, giving it stability, right?
Bingo.
Aha.
So that's why I said it depends on what the tip of the cartridge looks like. Some are more centered, right? Because you've got a center bar going straight through. Everything's welded or melted into the middle of the needle configuration. So that means that you want the tip of the cartridge to be right smack dab in the middle of the body of the cartridge so that everything runs in a straight line. Other companies, let's see if I can find a good example. Other companies, if you look carefully, will actually create a slight downward or a little bit more of like a bottom heavy, if that makes any sense, kind of configuration. This might not be the best example. These usually do the trick. But these actually sit a tiny bit lower, just a hair from where the needles come out. And that's to compensate for the fact that this is actually soldered onto the bottom of a metal bar. So as I was saying, most people might think that the one that's got just the straight bar is going to be the most stable. Not always true. Because if you have the bottom of this resting against the bottom of the cartridge, just like you would use a standard needle on bar setup, that is going to keep it tucked right to the back of that needle tip or of the cartridge tip. I apologize. Now, if you start to notice sometimes they're wobbling a little bit, pop it apart, give it a little bit of a bend, obviously before you get started. And that should help create a little bit more downward force to keep it a little bit more stable. But once again, it's going to create a lot more friction against the tip of the cartridge. And that's not always a good thing. Now the membrane on this, back stem comes off. Once again, we've got a square, keep it a bit more stabilized. Let's just see. I do like this little ribbing system that this brand has here, because even if pigment does backflow and it does get to this area, it's got to go past one edge and then it's probably going to fill an edge. And then it's got another one it's got to go past. And then it's got a reservoir. And then it's got another one it's going to go past. And then it's got a reservoir. And then it still has to work its way back up and then down to get out through the plunger or the back stem of the cartridge. Not very stiff, still pretty light. It's going to allow for nice, easy, it's going to allow for a lot more organic impact coming from the machine itself. It's got a decent amount of return force, but it's still got plenty of flex to it. So it's not going to wear the motor down on your machine hardly at all.
Well, I actually got to get out of here, so I'm going to catch you guys next Sunday.
You do it, man. You do the things.
All right. I'll see y'all later.
All right. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.
Cool. So that's a quick cartridge teardown. Nothing crazy. These are just some of the things that, I look at, whenever I've got free time, because I'm a tattoo nerd and that's what I like to do.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right.
It's just things to take into consideration, because that little bit of flex or that little bit of movement could mean the difference between, putting a line in perfectly and then not putting a line in perfectly and having to go back through and make that line just a hair bigger because it was just slightly off.
Mm-hmm.
And no one likes that.
No one likes that at all.
I mean, maybe you do, but I don't.
I do not.
I don't even
know
which.
A fan.
I don't even know which back parts go with what, but whatever. All this stuff's going to get thrown out anyway. So, but it's always good to know. Actually, I may keep some of these tips. I've got a project I'm working on. I started to talk with my boss, the studio owner, the other day of the studio I work at. And we actually, and I posted this up on my Instagram not too long ago, we actually made like a little cartridge machine rack to like actually, hold your cartridge machines and display them. I thought it was a really kick-ass little cool idea. And they're pretty easy to make too, if you know what to use. But
you got a photo example?
Yeah.
Show us. Show the class.
Let me pull it up. Yeah, he helped me get this together the other day, and I was like, dude, that's awesome. And so I went and made one, and I really like it. I think it's, pretty kick-ass.
I'm excited to see what you have.
Let's see. Take a look at this bad boy.
Oh, that is cool. Oh, I love it. That's very pretty. So let me. What did you use for those weird shaped L racks?
Those. There's a couple of different things that you can use to make those. He had a couple of those laying around from a previous project. Not sure where he got them. But he's like, yeah, here, use these, man. These will work great. So I honestly, I couldn't tell you where he got them.
Yeah, I'll just have to search the bins at Home Depot.
I think he did say that they were at one point in time originally part of like a display system that he got from one of the machine, like coil machine companies. I'm not positive.
And
maybe Pulse or Lucky's or Workhorse or something like that. I forget which.
What are you using for the part where the cartridge should go to hold the machines?
Excellent question. That is something I will discuss with you offline, because that is the secret.
Okay.
But yeah, I just wish I had a few more of the brackets so that I could put up a few of my other machines.
I really want to learn more about because finding information on coil machines is pretty easy. They've been around long enough where, there's Machine Gun Magazine and all different sorts of publications, both online and regularly. But I want to learn how to repair and tune a rotary by myself, because I don't know that many people that actually understand them.
That all depends on what kind of rotary you're using.
Yeah.
If you're using a slide rotary, that's going to be very different than using a pen style machine. And even with pen style machines, that's going to vary quite a bit from machine brand to machine brand based on the mechanism that they use to create the downward force. Wow. Some machines just use a motor with an offset cam. Some use some type of a weird linear drive mechanism that goes through, and it's almost like it's a wheel spinning to create the up and down motion. So there's different types. Most of them that I've come across actually end up using an offset cam system, because that's going to create the most downward linear force. By offset cam, I mean, look at Inkjecta machines, right?
Yeah, I have the Viper by Eternal, which is essentially just a inkjet
right.
setup.
Different motor, but same basic concept.
Yep.
What that is one electrical motor that actually spins an offset cam with a bearing inside, right, to create that linear force. Because the cam is offset, as it rotates up, it's going to pull that linear drive bar up. And as it rotates back down, it's going to drive that linear drive bar back down. The problem that you get with those is that there is some side-to-side movement because you are working in a circle pattern. As far as repair goes, I actually have an old Inkjecta that I ripped apart because I swear the machine was cursed from the beginning. Within the first month I bought it, I had to send it back because it stopped working. So after that, and after like doing a quick teardown of it and figuring out what was wrong with it, I just went through and kept fixing it myself. But every time I would fix it, something would happen. And I think it all had to do personally with the RCA jack on the back. And I asked them for just a brand new machine. They never gave me one. They just fixed the one that I had. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
Chris Smith on YouTube says, thank you guys very much. I enjoy watching every Sunday. Chris, you're very welcome. You're always welcome to join us too. If you ever wanted the link to join in the Zoom, just drop your Instagram handle or your email and I can send it to you. Yeah, maybe next Sunday or something like that, we can get you on here. But yeah, we're always looking for new people to join us.
Hell yeah.
If not, go tell all of your friends and make sure to leave a positive comment on the channel, on the video. Show us that you like it. Don't just tell us in the comments. Show us. But trying to repair a rotary machine can be far more intricate and far more complex than anything else. Because 9 times out of 10, the problem isn't with the motor itself. It's with the connection to the motor, or it's with the cam system.
Yeah, I know like one person who's pretty good with machines, but because they're like one of the only people in town that really can figure out and fix rotary machines, they're just too busy all the time.
Yeah.
Like you give your machine to him to fix, and it might take like a year for him to be able to get to it because he's just the only guy.
I've dabbled a little bit. There are certain machines I won't touch just because it will void any kind of a warranty. If it's past warranty, I might dabble with it. Like if my Cheyenne pen, which I don't have displayed on the Instagram picture, but if my Solnova started acting funky, there's plenty of repair videos out there on YouTube to go through and like actually take it apart to see what's going on with it. And there have been some issues with Cheyenne pens in the past with motors or bearings or whatever. Sometimes you have to go through and send it out. But even if you send it out to get repaired, most of the time they'll take it, they'll plug it in, they'll already know what the issue is, and they'll just send you a new one because you've already purchased it. You know, it's like, what good is it going to do me if you just send it back still broken? You know, it's going to cost maybe $250 or something like that. But a lot of Cheyenne's usually very good with customer service. Some rotary machines like Injectas, I can almost guarantee you what the issue is. They tend to have a lot of issues on the interior behind the motor with their connections to the RCA jack. I love my Injecta, my Trupa. I use it religiously for color tattoos. It is one of the best machines I have ever used, bar none. And I'm, you know, a machine guy. I like different ones for different things. But, you know, just based on that one bad experience, kind of makes me not want to buy another. You know, when you drop $750 for a machine, you don't expect to have to send it back in the first month.
No, that's pretty disappointing. I have a couple of machines that I am not happy with, and
Which ones?
They're made by this guy, John Clark in Taiwan or something like that.
John Clark's, from what I remember, he's based out of Texas.
His daughter is there. He is in another country. He makes them. He ships it to his daughter, and his daughter then does the stuff.
Maybe we're thinking about a different John Clark.
Maybe he used to be, or when I bought machines off of him, he was just like on vacation or living somewhere else for a brief time. But I know it was really hard to get a hold of him because he is in a different country. And at least when I tried to, I couldn't get a hold of him when I had problems. So I was disappointed because I didn't know what to do to fix the machines. And
are they slide rotaries? Are they just direct drives?
I think they're direct drives. I haven't touched them in like 2 years now because I don't really know what's wrong with them. I don't really know how to fix them. So they've just been sitting on the side until I can figure out what to do with them. I was thinking about selling them to some machine nerd that is okay with them potentially not working or wanting to just play with them.
Well, hit me up, you know, after this and send me some pictures of them. Maybe I'll pick them up from you.
Yeah, they're at work, so I'll send you some more information then. I just have to actually look at the machine to see what I'm talking about, and it's at work and I'm at home.
Fair enough. Well, we are about at that time. So if you wanted to go through and give us a quick little sign off.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Medusa. I work in Portland, Oregon. You can find my information and my stuff at Medusa Slays with 3 S's on the end on Instagram or medusaslays.com.
Awesome. Thank you very much. As always, everyone, thank you for tuning in today. My name is Jason Leeser. I run the Skill Building Sunday Drawing Group here at Reinventing the Tattoo. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you like us and if you like the program today, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button down at the bottom so that way you can keep up with all the latest information and all the latest shows and programs coming at you. Yeah, you can always reach me on Instagram at Philly Ink, PhillYink. I am going to be at the Resurrection Island Tattoo Convention So feel free to hit me up if you guys will be anywhere near that vicinity. It should be a great show. I'm working it with my friend Elaine from Detroit. So it's going to be a great show. Yeah. And as always, you can always hit me up, send me a DM. Or if you live in the generalized Philadelphia, New Jersey area, feel free to stop by the studio. I work at the Inkwell Tattoo in Southampton, Pennsylvania. My books are never closed, so I don't really believe in that. You know, and I try not to book out further than 3 months. And if that means I got to come in extra hours, I will. But, you know, there's a pretty good chance I can get you in fairly soon. Well, depending on what soon is, right? But anyway, thank you guys very much for tuning in today. Hope everyone has a great day. Keep those hands moving, keep them drawing, keep them painting, keep them working. Do whatever you got to do, but keep them moving. Thanks a lot, and I'll catch you guys next